Welcome to the DaVinci Hour podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Maxwell Cooper, and in this podcast series, I interview physicians, medical innovators, and entrepreneurs making an impact on healthcare. This podcast is produced by DaVinci Academy, a multimedia medical education company that provides podcasts, video courses, and digital textbooks. You can see more on our website, www.dviacademy.com, and our YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/DaVinci Academy Med. This podcast is sponsored by Doc2Doc, the personal lending platform designed for doctors by doctors. Do you have some big expenses in the near future? Maybe you're moving, applying to residency or fellowship, fixing up your car or home, or starting a new practice. Doc2Doc believes that traditional lenders overestimate the risk of lending money to doctors, residents, and medical students, focusing too much on the challenges of their financial past and giving them insufficient credit for the promise of their financial future. Check out Doc2Doc's personal loan options at doc2doclending.com/DaVinci. Hey everybody, welcome back to the DaVinci Hour podcast. I'm honored to be joined this week by Seth Bogner, who is the chairman and CEO of HeartPoint Global, a new startup working on a new innovative technology for heart care, impacting patients all over the world. So Seth, welcome to the podcast. Really happy to have you here.
Max, thanks so much for having me.
Let's just start out. I said you were the chairman and CEO of HeartPoint, but maybe give us a little bit of background on yourself, like how what you did in your previous endeavors and how you got involved with HeartPoint.
Sure. So my background's mostly financial. I've been an investment banker for over 30 years, and I came to HeartPoint as an investor. I saw that there was an opportunity here, and after being an investor for a couple of years, I saw that the doctors are great, and actually the inventor and all the doctors who founded it are still with us, and they're still on our advisory board. But the business people they had weren't really doing what was necessary to bring the product to fruition and then building a company. So me and my team came in, hired, did the same things I've been doing in corporate finance for my life, hired the right consultants and figured out whether what we felt instinctively was correct. But we thought there was an unbelievable opportunity with technology here. We were all really attracted by what we could do, not only in the developed world, but in the developing world as well, where 90% of people are underserved with cardiac care. So I think everybody in our company was attracted by the same thing. What we have is the first and only adjustable at any time interventional, which you know something about, a device that goes directly in the pulmonary artery or its branches. And this is amazing stuff, because in a lot of cases, in the developed world, we're dealing with people that are pretty sick people that have if you start with cardiovascular disease and you say the largest subsection of cardiovascular disease is left heart, we deal with the largest subsection of left heart. So there are an awful lot of patients. I think right now it's estimated in the United States alone we have 350,000 patients. These are people that are pretty sick, that would need artificial heart, an LVAD, or perhaps a transplant. And that market's getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year because people are living longer. And we replace something called pulmonary artery banding, which is a very old procedure. And I wouldn't say we replace it. We sort of bring it to the next level because we're minimally invasive. And pulmonary artery banding was an open chest procedure. They tied a wire or a string around the pulmonary artery, had a big reduction, and then loosened it up till they thought it was correct, so the heart could start to correct itself with the reduction of pressure and flow. We have sort of taken it to a whole other level by saying we will gradually reduce the flow and pressure to find. And what we found we've done we've done 4 rounds of animal studies, preclinicals, is that much less pressure is needed in order to get the desired effect. And that's amazing because it's much safer for the patient.
Sure.
We're adjustable anytime. So if conditions change the patient, or we're working on kids, which I'll talk about in a second, it's amazing. We can go back a day, a week, a month, a year later, or 2 years later, and change as the conditions change with the patient. Be changed as well. So in the developed world, we work on we're working mostly with kids, which is what attracted all of us to this. Kids that have ASDs, VSDs, so holes in their heart. 1 in 100 kids are born with some type of congenital heart issue, and those kids get older. We have a huge market. It's very unfortunate because the type of care we have in the Western world is not readily available in most of the world. And so we have a simple interventional system that we believe, and we've tried this on animals, and we will try this on people, that you don't need to be an interventional cardiologist to insert. Regular cardiologists and general surgeons could do the procedure as well, which will open up the market to a lot more people. And we're partners with something called the Eurasian Heart Foundation, and Eurasia has been doing this all over the world. So we have a lot of access all over. So, there's really 2 separate markets we're attacking. One is obviously European Union and the FDA, and the other one is all these medical systems all over the world that we're going to try to gain access to at the same time.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for giving that overview. So just so I understand the device in the entirety, and just for the listeners, so it's a endovascularly placed device, which is like you said, in the old days it was surgical. You would do it, essentially external to the vessels, and you're essentially, I was watching some videos on your website. You're limiting flow to kind of essentially keep the left ventricle from getting overrun from flow from the from the right side of the heart. Is that fair to say?
Well, in different for your different indications, you have different things. You do have a septum shift. It's been proven. We have literature on this, that with kids that have VSD, that the holes close up when you reduce it. So there were different indications, and also, we service 11 different indications. We're just I talked about the top 2, but also. If you're talking about pulmonary hypertension, we treat. There are different types of pulmonary hypertension, but we treat what they call PAH-CHD, which there's really no real treatment for right now. And there's some drugs people use and things like that, but there's not really an effective treatment out there for this. And also, like in cirrhosis. And you'd appreciate this, especially with what you do. You have the same needs for adjusting flow on TIPS patients. And so we believe we'll be working there. But obviously, it's a tremendous undertaking when just to focus on our 2 main patient groups, not counting the other 8 or 9. So we're focusing first on this, both for the developing world and the developed world.
No, that's really cool. It's really innovative, really fascinating, and like you said, the fact that you can adjust it, like you said, whether it's a day later or weeks later, or even longer than that, it's just amazing. And just so I understand, you go back in and you can adjust the device endovascularly. Is that how it is done?
Yeah, this is our patent, and our patent's been accepted in the United States, and I think at this point about 25 other jurisdictions so far, and more coming in every day. We just got the Indian patent in the mail. It's a nesting system, so we can put stents within stents. and we could also adjust up using balloons, using a balloon stent. It's not complicated technology. It's amazing. And actually, our inventor is a guy by the name of Rolf Yanni, who is both a mechanical engineer and an echo guy.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I thought you'd like that. And it's what do they call it? A close razor. The simplest solution is generally the best solution.
I was just going to
And
say that. Yeah.
and we do have, and that's why we our cost is so disruptive. That's why we could help so many people, and that's why we've de-risked this process, and we've made it very, very patient centric. And we're estimating right now, like if you have somebody with left ventricular cardiomyopathy, they go up 2 levels on the New York scale, which takes them from being, I don't know if this is a politically correct term nowadays, a cardiac cripple, to being able to play with their grandchildren a bit. It is amazing. And also younger patient sets in cardiomyopathy as well. It's not just old people. There's always a shortage of hearts. There are never enough hearts for heart transplants. LVADs and artificial hearts are good, but very, very expensive. An LVAD cost in the United States is about $1 million over 10 years. Our device is about $4,000. If you add the cost of one night's hospitalization and observation, so in the United States, you're taking care of a patient for $30,000. That what insurer or Medicare or Medicaid is not going to go for this solution before they go and approve a transplant or something like that, assuming they could even find a heart.
Sure.
It's there's always a shortage of organs, as you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, I can echo, Emory is a major cardiac center, as you may be aware. And I mean,
Yeah,
we
sure.
have huge LVAD center. And I mean, like you said, this is not it's a temporary solution. And as you said, it's a very expensive solution, aside from just the long-term, maintenance. I mean, these patients are, as frequently readmitted, develop all kinds of problems and complications. And not only is that awful for the patient and awful for the families to go through, but like you said, it's an extremely expensive process. And so I think it's just amazing that you not only have come up with an innovative device that's effective, but also can be, at a much more reduced cost. And I'm curious from the cost standpoint, because, I know, like you said, which I think is really interesting, you're targeting, the developing world with this as well. How are you guys, in that context, being able to keep this cost so low? Because as you know, these medical devices anymore, it can be crazy sometimes.
It's true, and we developed our cost structure along with a guy by the name of Ilya Yemetz, who is the former two-time Minister of Health in Ukraine. We were doing planning on doing all of our clinical testing in Ukraine. Obviously, we all know the unfortunate situation that's occurring there, and the doctors we work with are just total studs. They've been, haven't left there at the hospital in months and months and months. They've gotten little breaks, but at the beginning they were there constantly. But, we did this based upon reimbursement in a country like Ukraine, which is we all know Kiev is a world-class city, but if you get outside of Kiev, you're in a middle-income country at best, and there's a big target for us. So that was a reimbursable number, and our margin is still very large at that number. So the cost will be reflective. I'm sure, as we move into the United States, the cost will be somewhat different, but, this is what we estimate the cost is. We have a huge, huge market, you're familiar obviously with TAM, SAM, and SOM. Our serviceable obtainable market is right now in the world over 30 million people. We achieve, I think it's just over 1% of that. The company is grossing $700 million. It's the numbers are just sort of ridiculous. But the opportunity to help people is also ridiculous. And bringing it to places like that, Paul Vogt, who's who was till very recently the chief cardiac surgeon at Zurich University Hospital, which is also a top cardiac center in the world, is in Nigeria or Benin right now, bringing these types of solutions to people. And, we have access to bring it to, Nigeria is a very, very wealthy country. There are some top, good facilities there. They're dying for something like this. So we're now, as I said, we've de-risked the process as much as possible. We've done 4 rounds of preclinical animal trials, all done in Israel, where our CMO is located, and he's the chief interventional cardiologist at DaVinci University Medical Center, and David Planner. We just did our dress rehearsal, and now we're, actively shopping patients and locations to do our first in human, to be a humanitarian. That'll immediately go into a larger study, which will take place in Western Europe. We've already identified the doctors. That'll give us enough to get a breakthrough designation from the FDA and start our pivotal trials in the United States.
Excellent. Yeah, you just answered my next question was going to be where you are in the development process, which is, it seems like you're, like you said, about to enter that clinical testing phase, which is obviously very critical. So it sounds like, obviously you said you were planning on doing it in the Ukraine, and then I think you just mentioned you're initially trying to start this in Western Europe. Is there anywhere where you're trying to get approval for, at the first? Is it the FDA, or is it in some other market where you're trying to?
No. The way when you're dealing with something as groundbreaking as what we're doing, you do some humanitarian cases first, and that's what we're doing. And that's going to happen in Eastern Europe or the Caucasus. Then we're doing 2 full clinical trials, one on left heart issues and one on congenital issues. And that is going to happen in Europe, and we're going for every approval. Obviously, FDA is the most important approval.
That's really interesting. I'm curious what, obviously we could probably do a whole podcast on this, but I guess what are some of the regulatory differences you're seeing that you're considering as you develop this in, say, the developing world versus like what you would see in, the US or in the European Union?
Well, there's a whole controversy right now happening in the European Union. They've changed systems. It's MDD to MDR or MDR to MDD. And there's been a bit of confusion with that. The reason we were focused initially so much on Ukraine was Ukraine has a treaty with the European Union that all the data that we collect through our CRO in Ukraine would be available to the Europeans. And also, as we obtain approval in Ukraine, I think there are 9 other CIS countries that would go along with it. So that market alone, while I am a humanitarian, while I believe that capitalism needs to evolve, I'm also a business person. So we're very focused on developing those markets. Because by developing those markets, while we're going for our FDA approval and everything else, we can start generating cash, and that makes us unique, because we're profitable almost from the get-go. And just because we don't have Ukraine now doesn't mean that we're not profitable. We'll just be in different markets. There are a lot of markets that work like that. Getting FDA approval or CE or European Union approval opens up a lot of markets that aren't FDA or EU. For example, in Brazil, you get a quote. We speaking to the largest hospital operator in Brazil, which is also the largest CMO in Brazil, and they said, just come to us with anything that says FDA on it, and we have so many patients for you. You don't know what to. You won't know what to do. obviously FDA is gold standard, and obviously we are extremely focused on what makes the FDA happy. And we have a an opportunity now to really go ahead and, because the FDA is looking for a lot of data. It's not like, it was a few years ago where it's just sort of like, come to us and we'll give you breakthrough. They want to see the data, and we, are going to provide them with the data they're looking for. We just have so much to offer the developing world. I think it's sort of unfair where we have relationships with different departments of health on the ministerial level through Paul Vogt and other people, that we're not, bringing the solution there as quickly as possible while we're going through the FDA process and dotting all of our I's and crossing all of our T's and doing everything in a legal and proper way.
Interesting. I'm curious, it could be, the answer to this could be regulatory or something else, but I guess what's some, I guess, a major challenge you guys have had to, deal with in terms of either could be regulatory or more even in the like early development phase or testing phase. And I guess how have you guys been able to mitigate that?
It's a big question. There are a lot of challenges, when you're going into sort of the pulmonary artery. That's sort of like, landing on the moon. Understanding the difference, what patients you should be in the main pulmonary artery, what type of patients you should be in the branches. Obviously, there's a lot less pressure and flow in the branches than there is in the main PA. But, if you're going to have to remove the device at some point because you have kids that are under, let's say, 12, you're going to want to be in the main PA. You want to be in the branches with older patients, even though you're going in on both sides. Or we learned a lot, and that's why we did 4 rounds of animal studies, because there's a fine line between too much pressure reduction and too little. If you looked at the way they were doing banding, and we tried that, if you tried that, using our methodology and our technology, you might have a stent that moves, and you don't want to have that. So we're very cautious. We're very sensitive to making sure that, the patient comes first. So safety, safety, safety. I'm sure if I had my regulatory guy sitting next to me, he'd give you 12 other things that we've looked at. What's so gratifying for us is people that are most excited about what we're doing are the doctors. And I envy you, because you wake up every day and you're trying to help people. And in my previous life as a business person, I was just trying to make money. And what we're trying to do at HeartPoint is make money, but at the same time, have a social ethos that really is ingrained in everything that we do. We want to make sure that we're trying to help people. We want to make sure that we're doing something good for society. And by the way, that you don't have to be in healthcare to do that. Steve Jobs did the same thing, when he started Apple. He changed everybody's life for the better, with his vision. We, on a much smaller scale, obviously, even though it's, our business is sort of teed up to become a huge business, everybody came because they wanted to help sick kids that turn blue, and the doctors talked us into focusing on left heart first, or at least simultaneously, because they said that's the money app. That's what people are going to care about in the United States and Western Europe. And obviously, kids with congenital heart issues are caught not all the time, but most of the time in the United States and Western Europe. So, we do both. But it's wanting to do something and I think that's the way capitalism in general has to evolve if it's going to really, really, really survive. I think people are sort of sick of people just trying to make money for making money's sake, or, or this will, this thing is, we'll just give money back. No, your intention needs to be to make money and to help society, or be a responsible corporate citizen on, almost every level. And I think that this is the way things need to evolve in order for society to move forward. There was a poll the other day that people trust corporations more than governments. And, I know a lot of corporations I don't trust at all. But I think we business people have to incorporate into our ethos, and it's not just ESG. ESG, I think, is sort of a synthetic way that they're trying to wrap around it. And it's not net zero, because, when people get hurt with net zero, it has to do with the founders and the people that run the companies having the intention to do the right thing from the get-go. And that's what I think moves us forward as a society and as business people too.
Yeah, no, I commend you for that. I mean, it's, but that's kind of the beauty of medical innovation, is not only are you, hopefully developing a great business, but more importantly, really impacting patient care and patients' lives. I think that's at the core of what all drives us. And I think you hit on something also really important that, maybe some med tech companies may miss on, is that you said that the doctors really like using your product, that you guys, and it sounds like from day one, this has been a product that you guys have constantly sought, feedback from physicians on, and made sure that's, the end user likes using it. Because, we've all heard stories of devices that looked great on paper, tested well, and then when it got out into the real world, physicians don't like it, they're not going to use it. And so I think that's
for sure.
That's so critical.
And we I guess having some fun a couple of weeks ago when we were doing what I call our dress rehearsal for First in Human. We stuck 6 stents in a vessel. That's how much fun they were having. Let's go one more. Let's go one more. We have no intention of sticking 6 stents in a human vessel. But seeing that we're doing it successfully in animals, showing that we were not having any migration issues, showing that we're achieving pressure and gradient reductions that are going to cure people, or not cure people, but treat people in a way that's very, very meaningful, is super, super, super. And the doctors were just having fun. It's like, should we do one more? It's like, yeah, go ahead. It's amazing technology. And then, but there is, you're talking about, where we stand right now. We've traveled a long road. We've dealt with, keeping the company together during COVID, during supply chain shortages. Of course, this whole situation in Ukraine was devastating for us, and we held it together. And I'm very proud of us and our team, and our doctors are just amazing people that just want to make everything work and bring the solution to the world. So we are actively seeking partners now. We've financed everything ourselves up pretty much up to this point, and we've invested millions of dollars. So we're sort of a great company because we've just de-risked this process so much over so many years, and obviously our patents are good and all this other stuff. But we need the right quality partner. That's the issue for us. We just don't want to take money. We want the right partner, and we are really sort of focused now on bringing in that right partner, which is something, during COVID, it was very hard to raise money.
So yeah, so just I was going to ask you about the funding, because as that's always on the back of every entrepreneur's mind is keeping the lights on and every, so to speak. So it sounds like you and your partners with the business have funded this entirely yourself. You haven't taken out any outside investment up to this point. Is that
That's
correct?
true.
Okay,
That's true.
that's amazing. Wow, yeah, that's
So some people would say that's really stupid, but it was just the circumstances. So it was not our plan.
But I think it shows that, you guys are really, both, figuratively and literally invested in this. Like, you guys really believe in this. And I would think when you go to an outside investor, that's going to say a lot, that
Sure.
the team is that,
I'm the personification of skin in the game. Uh, and it's funny, I've raised a lot of money for a lot of things over the years. This is very different for me. A, I'm in the first person, which is, changed because, my training is as a banker. B, it's something that's so close to my heart. A lot of companies are just so focused on the exit. We're not against exit, but it's like when you see these investors are saying, okay, what's the exit? I don't know what the exit is. I think that people and companies that focus on the exit too much never get done what they want to do. And what we want to do is we want to bring the solution to the world, and we feel it's our responsibility to bring the solution to the world. And if it's not us driving the boat to bring that solution to the world, that's fine, as long as the solution gets to the world. The issue is that, a lot of companies have great devices, and sometimes they get bought up for the wrong reasons and get put on a shelf somewhere. And we're trying to make sure we get to market in the best possible way with the best possible quality partners. And as I said before, we're so deep into the process. We've, and this is not a risk-free process in any step, and I don't want to deceive anybody by saying it is, but we're about as risk-free as you get in this business, which costs a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort to get there. Very grateful we are where we are. So it's like we're not a startup. We're deep into Series A. If you were looking at it conventionally, and we haven't taken a Series A investor because normally you do Series A before you do first in human, and now we're about to do first in human, and it's like who's going to be our partner?
Gotcha. Yeah. So I guess maybe a little bit, what type of partner are you looking for? And I guess, if people are interested in, I guess investing or finding out more about investing, where's the best way for them to find out that information?
When I first started in the business and you were trying to cover the world, there were 100 phone calls you could make, and you'd be done. You would hit every fund, you would hit every investment bank. Now there are literally thousands of funds and things like that. Anyone who wants to write me at sb@heartpointglobal.com. But this isn't an offering. I just want to make that clear. We're not offering any securities for sale. If I didn't say something like that, which chop my hands off. We're always interested in hearing from people who are interested in our technology and interested in what we're doing. And we have tons of data, tons of great people who are on our team.
Amazing. As we wrap up here, I want to ask you, what's your vision for maybe the next, year and a half? What's kind of like the big milestone you guys are hoping to hit?
Well, what we're doing is we sort of have it mapped out, but what they all say, man makes plans and God laughs, as we found out during COVID. But it's, what we're doing is we're doing our humanitarian first in human, and then we're doing two smaller studies, one for left heart, one for congenital. And that's what we're going to be doing for the next year plus, and then we hope to go into our pivotal study. And my people, our regulatory people, and say that's a reasonable time.
My last question, which I ask everybody, is when you're not working on HeartPoint, what are your passions outside of work? How do you find that balance, if there is one?
I'm a family guy. I have three sons. One of them is a doctor as well, and I have two dogs. And I'm a pretty spiritual guy, and I love playing tennis. Unfortunately, I I spend more time than I'd like, focused on what we're doing at HeartPoint, and it's the good work.
Sure.
It's I was coming up. Uh, it was, how many hours can you work? And now you don't even think it's a pleasure because you're doing good work. We're very fortunate that we have this great team all over the world, and we were always working together. And I think that's really, the message here is we are grateful for the opportunity we have to help the world and help all these sick people who need us. As I said earlier, it's over 30 million people in the in the achievable market. It's crazy.
It's just crazy. Yeah, it
Yeah,
really is.
you ask for something, you want to do something, it's like 30 million people we could reach with our solution. It's a great gift.
I guess lastly, how can people find out more information? I guess, and we'll put the links in the description for this, but website, any kind of platforms you guys are active on, any platforms you're active on that
Yeah,
people can reach out.
You could look me up on LinkedIn. You could look HeartPoint up on LinkedIn. We don't have a huge Twitter presence or any, but heartpointglobal.com is a good place, and I think there's a link on there where you could reach us. And anyone who wants to write to me, it's sb@heartpointglobal.com. I'm happy to hear from anyone. Happy to share what we're doing. We have sort of that approach where we think our technology is something that's there for the world.
Well, Seth, thank you again for taking time on your very busy schedule, and thank you for what you and your team are working on. I think this is just amazing, and not only the impact for just heart patients in general, but for patients all over the world. Really focusing on helping patients that really need it most in different areas of the world. So really appreciate what you guys are working on.
Thanks so much, Max. It was great meeting you, and I look forward to keeping in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to this episode of the DaVinci Hour podcast, presented by DaVinci Academy. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow the podcast on your podcast platform of choice to catch the latest episodes. Please leave a comment or a review and share it with a friend. Lastly, you can find all of our podcasts, video courses, and books on our website, dviacademy.com. Thank you for listening.